It's adjusted for inflation. I'll assume 2% a year. Spending still will increase even with the sequester. American politicians increase spending outlays by more than inflation every year. They're out of control. The rare politician who understands that? Senator Rand Paul. Congressman, you voted against the sequester because you didn't think it cut enough?
Yeah, now everybody's squawking. It's really just a slowdown in the rate of increase in government. And when you look at that chart you put up, you can't even really see a space between the lines. So it's the least we can do to get started. And we've got people even on the Republican side saying, oh, well, let's do the cuts over 10 years instead of over 1 year. They're going to replace the sequester with 10 years worth of cuts instead of 1 year. And that's such a cop-out. And if we can't do this little bit, which is in the right direction, how are we ever going to balance the budget?
On the other hand, if the sequester passes, there will be real cuts to discretionary spending. Here's a graph of that. But discretionary, including military, that's only a third of the budget. It's still not that big a cut.
The other interesting thing, John, is that the cuts in discretionary spending, if you look at them by themselves, it's really only in the first year or so, and then they rise, too.
To quote you, only in Washington could an increase in $7 trillion over 10 years be called a cut.
Well, and I've come up with a proposal that I call sequestration without layoffs. And what we propose is, why don't we not rehire anybody who retires? That's about 100,000 federal workers a year, saves $6 billion. Why don't we pay federal workers the same as we pay private workers? That'd be about 16% less than we pay them now. That saves $32 billion. Why don't we cut their travel budget by 25%? That saves another $2 billion. And then if we do competitive wages and competitive bidding for contractors, that's another $19 billion. You can cut out the entire sequester without losing a single job. Although I do think your probably government does need to be smaller, you could actually do it without cutting any jobs if you wanted to.
And you've gone beyond that. You've proposed a budget that would eliminate 4 cabinet departments. Commerce, that would save $9 billion. Education, $70 billion. Energy, $27 billion, though some of that's for nuclear bomb maintenance and could go to the Defense Department. Housing and development, $41 billion. I think many Americans hear that and they say, how will we have commerce or education or housing?
My argument would be that we spend about $100 billion a year on education. It's not any better. We have tripled the amount of per pupil spending, and we've cut classrooms in half, and scores are flat. We haven't gotten any better. So I'm a big believer in school choice.
How will we have commerce without a commerce department?
Well, you know, the great thing about trade is people trade to try to benefit their self-interest, and we've had it since probably man first existed. So I don't think we need government. What happens with the Commerce Department is they subsidize the travel of certain CEOs that are friends of government. So if you're a friend of, Barack Obama, you get to travel around. They'll help you with sweetheart deals like Solyndra or $1.8 billion for the Kennedy family for BrightSource. But really, you don't need that favoritism, and it's really what's wrong with government is sort of corporate welfare.
How will we have housing without a Department of Housing and Urban Development?
I think the government's actually torn down more houses than they've ever built, and many of the public housings go into disrepair and disuse. There are great programs out there for helping the poor. Habitat for Humanity is one that I support, and they build houses, they build ownership, the people put sweat equity as well as capital equity into them, and I think there are ways to help people, but throwing government housing at them and then letting them get overrun by drugs and other problems isn't the way to do it.
And how would we have energy without an energy department?
Yeah, I think basically the marketplace will determine the cheapest form of energy. And right now, so you have the government, President Obama, distorting that marketplace and giving money to people who are big contributors who build solar panel companies. And really, all of these companies seem to be going bankrupt. So really what you need is a marketplace to direct it, and then those who can produce energy the cheapest, consumers will buy those energy forms, and those energy companies will succeed.
All right, the current Congress is not entertaining your cuts of 4 departments, but this is the Stossel Show, so I'll go further. Why are you so careful? Why not get rid of the Labor Department and the Agriculture Department?
Well, I'm such a moderate, John, and so I'm just starting with, about 30% of government, and we'll go from there. But here's the thing is imagine the Fuhrer if they were seriously discussing my 5-year balanced budget. Right now, we're talking about a cut in the rate of increase that never balances the budget. We're becoming poorer each year as we dig the hole deeper and deeper.
But let me quibble with you about your balance the budget idea, in that A, when Republicans say that, I automatically start to go to sleep. But B, my understanding is we don't need to get all the way balanced. If we simply slowed the growth of government to 1 or 2% a year, we could grow our way out of the debt problem.
But it is true that growth is a big part of this. In fact, when you look and people say there's not enough tax revenue, the reason there's not enough tax revenue is because we've been in a terrible recession. So it is about the economic engine of growth, but you have to have policies that cause growth.
But do you agree that the balancing the budget's a goal, but you don't have to get all the way there if we just slowed the growth that would allow us to get out of trouble?
Well, that's how you get into a more manageable debt. I still think you should balance your annual debt. I'm not up here saying, oh, we have to immediately eliminate $16 trillion in debt. That's going to be very difficult. But balancing your annual budget is a good and wise admonition, and so I do favor getting to that. There's another plan and another way of looking at it. I propose the penny plan also, which cuts government by 1% a year for 6 years, and the budget actually balances. But it just puts it into perspective that it's not that difficult to balance your budget, but it'd have to be a real 1% cut. And I think most American families have had to live with that. I see no reason why government shouldn't.
Just 1%. Good luck with that. Thank you, Senator Rand Paul.
Thanks, John.